Have you ever really stopped to think about martial arts that aren't just about fighting, ones with like centuries of history behind them?
Absolutely. Where there are also pathways to, well, health and maybe even understanding things a bit deeper.
Exactly. It's this fascinating blend, and that's pretty much where we're heading today. We got a real gem shared with us, Robert W. Smith's Pa Kua, Chinese Boxing for Fitness and Self-Defense.
Ah, Smith's book, a classic.
Yeah. And it's not just, another manual. This one, first out in 67, right? Now in a new edition. It's apparently one of the very first looks in English at this whole palm boxing idea.
It holds a significant place, definitely. One of the early introductions for many in the West.
So our mission for you listening is to kind of cut through all the layers and get right to the heart of Pakua, where it comes from, the philosophy, some core methods.
But in a way that hopefully clicks, right? Without feeling like you just read a dense textbook.
Precisely. And helping us navigate this is our expert, ready to connect the dots for us.
Happy to dive in. What's really striking about Pa Kua right off the bat is how tied it is to this ancient way of looking at the universe.
So,
Well, the name itself, Pa Kua pronounced Bagua, isn't just a random label. It comes directly from the I Ching.
the I Ching, okay, the Book of Changes.
Exactly, a text that's been shaping Confucian and Taoist thought for like 3,000 years. Imagine that a martial art named after that.
Wow. Okay, so the I Ching, that sounds, well, pretty profound. How does a philosophical text connect to, boxing?
Right. Well, originally the I Ching used these simple symbols. A solid line meant yes, a broken line meant no. Basic stuff for divination, understanding the world.
Uh-huh.
But then these evolved. They grouped into threes trigrams and then sixes hexagrams. The word for these diagrams in Chinese is Kua.
Kua. Okay.
So Pa Kua literally translates to 8 diagrams.
Mm-hmm.
It refers to the 8 basic trigrams.
The trigrams. Got it. So these ancient symbols are somehow the foundation.
In a sense, yes. They represent these fundamental forces or concepts in nature, according to that philosophy. They become a kind of blueprint for Pa Kua's movements, its principles,
Yeah.
especially the idea of change.
Change. Okay. And the book lists these trigrams: Qin, Kun, Chen. Names you don't hear every day. What do they actually stand for in this martial art context?
Think of them as core qualities, each with an image.
Hmm.
So Chen is the creative, like heaven, it embodies strength. Kun is the receptive, like earth-yielding,
Oh, so
devoted.
in Earth?
Then you have Chen, the arousing, like thunder, that spark of movement. Kan, the abysmal, water suggesting danger, depth. Ken, keeping still, like a mountain rest, stability.
Rotten, right.
Sun is gentle, like wind or wood penetration. Influence. Li is clinging, firelight,
Hmm.
clarity. And Tui, the joyous, like a lake pleasure expression.
So each one is a whole concept, and these get arranged into that Pakua diagram the book mentions. It talks about primal and inner world arrangements. Sounds complicated.
It does sound a bit esoteric, yeah. Those arrangements show different ways the trigrams relate to each other, often linked to seasons or directions. And interestingly, south is usually at the top in Chinese diagrams.
South at the top, huh?
Yeah, different perspective.
Yeah.
But look, the book makes a really important point here. You don't need to become like an I Ching scholar to understand the boxing.
Oh, good. That's a relief.
Right. The philosophy informs it, provides this deep background, but the physical practice, the art itself, it stands on its own.
Okay, so no PhD in ancient philosophy required to learn a palm strike, but the core ideal linking them is this constant change thing.
Exactly. That's the key takeaway from the I Ching connection. Just like the book emphasizes constant flow and transformation in everything, Pa Kua boxing embodies that in its techniques. Everything's moving, shifting, adapting, nothing static.
Constant change. Okay, I get that. So that's the philosophical backdrop. Now, what about the actual martial art? The book points to Tung Haichuan as the main guy, right? Tell us about him.
All right, Tong Haichuan lived 1798 to 1879, Qing dynasty. He's the one credited with really bringing Pa Kua into the public eye, so to speak.
And the story is pretty dramatic.
Oh, yeah. Classic martial arts origin tale. Apparently, in his early 20s, he was in a really bad way, near starvation, up in the mountains in Jiangsu.
Wow.
And he runs into this unnamed Taoist figure. This Taoist helps him, nurses him back to health, and then teaches him this, quote, divine boxing art.
A mysterious Taoist hermit in the mountains sounds like something out of a movie. So what happened after he learned this art?
Well, he eventually made his way to Peking and started gaining a reputation. And that led to a major challenge from Kuo Yunshen.
Kuo Yunshen, famous Shingai master, right? The divine crushing hand.
That's the one, famous for incredible power. The story goes they fought for 2 whole days, and Kuo, despite his skill, couldn't beat Tung.
2 days. Seriously.
That's the legend. On the third day, Tung supposedly took control and defeated Kuo decisively. But here's the amazing part. They became lifelong friends.
No way! After a duel like that.
Yeah, they formed a kind of brotherhood pact. It even required I Ching students to learn Pa Kua, and Pa Kua students to learn I Ching I.
That's incredible. Talk about respect.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's why those two arts, I Ching and Pa Kua, are still seen as linked, as complementary systems even today. These stories, even if maybe exaggerated, they tell you something about the skill and character valued in the art.
Definitely. And the book mentions he ended up serving in the king's palace. That's quite a jump.
It is. Later in life, yeah, he became a eunuch, served in the palace, eventually under a nobleman named Su Qinhuang. Lord Su had this really skilled Mohammedan boxer, Shah Huitzu, as his chief protector.
Okay.
And Shah's wife was apparently an expert pistol shot. Serious security.
Sounds like it. So how did Tung fit in? How did he show his skills?
Well, there's this story about a big banquet. It was super crowded, hard for servants to get through. Tung apparently just scaled a wall, ran across the roof to the kitchen, got the tea, came back the same way, effortless. Lord Su was amazed, obviously. Asked Tung to show his martial art. Tung demonstrated Pa Kua, the flowing movements, the sudden changes, and everyone was captivated, which naturally led to a challenge from Shah Huitzu.
The head bodyguard felt threatened.
Seems like it. Tung defeated him. But the story gets even more dramatic.
Go on.
Tung sensed some resentment, right? So late one night, Shah creeps into Tung's room with a knife. At the same time, his wife is outside the window, aiming her pistol at Tung.
Intense.
Incredibly. But Tung reacts instantly, supposedly disarms the wife, confronts Shah. Shah is terrified, bangs his head on the floor, begs forgiveness.
And Tung.
Tung forgave him. Not only that, he took Shah on as a student.
That's remarkable. It shows immense character, not just skill. So these legends about him after he retired, they get even wilder.
They really do. He supposedly taught only a few select students after retiring. And the stories just grew, like one where he fought off multiple armed attackers completely unharmed. Another one, he's sitting in a chair, leaning against the wall. The wall suddenly collapses. His students rush over, thinking he's buried in rubble.
Yeah.
And they find him nearby, still sitting in the same chair, but now it's leaning against a different intact wall.
Get out! That sounds impossible.
It does sound almost supernatural, right? And then there's the most famous one, the casket story, attributed to Wan Lai Sheng.
Right, the casket. What happened there?
The story claims that when Tung apparently died, his students tried to lift his casket for burial, but they couldn't budge it, like it was fused to the ground.
Seriously?
As they're struggling, a voice supposedly comes from inside the casket, saying something like, "See? I told you none of you has even a tenth of my skill."
Oh, come on.
Then supposedly he really passed away and they could lift the casket easily.
That is something else. Wow.
Exactly. These stories, probably grew over time, but they show the kind of impact Tung had, the almost unbelievable level of skill people attributed to him. Makes you wonder where history ends and legend begins.
Absolutely. Like the book says, legends often have a grain of truth, or at least reflect something real. Okay, so Tung had students who carried this on. Who were the key ones?
Well, he reportedly has 72 students in total, which sounds quite specific. But the most famous ones mentioned are Yin Fu, they called him Thin Yin, and Cheng Tinghua, Invincible Cobra Cheng.
Invincible Cobra. Quite a name.
Right? Also Ma Wei Qi, Du Fengchen, and Xin Liu. Yin Fu was known for amazing skill but didn't teach many, mostly worked as a bodyguard. Interestingly, some say he might have actually been Cheng Tinghua's student, not Tung's directly.
Huh. So the lineages aren't always crystal clear.
Exactly. It shows how complex tracking these traditions can be sometimes.
And Cheng Tinghua, the Cobra, what's his story? He ran a shop?
Yeah, Cheng Tinghua, also from Hebei province, he ran a spectacle shop in Peking. The Cobra nickname. Maybe from the glasses, like eyeglass snake being a term for cobra, or maybe just his fast, fluid movements.
Okay. And his death is debated.
Very much so. One really dramatic version says during the Boxer Rebellion, he fought off German looters with hidden knives, took several down before being killed himself.
Wow.
But other sources just say he died of natural causes. Big difference. Kind of adds to his legendary status, these conflicting accounts.
Definitely. But regardless, he taught a lot of people.
Oh, yes. Cheng had many influential students who became major figures themselves. People like Li Tsunai, Sun Lutang, whose book Smith references heavily here, Chang Yuquei, Han Qiying, Feng Shuni, a whole list of masters. His impact was huge.
And Ma Weiqi, another key student.
Yes, Ma Weiqi also taught many notable students. And again, like with Yan Fu, there's a bit of debate, did Teng teach him directly or was it Cheng? It just underscores how these lines of transmission weren't always formally documented.
Yeah, sounds like knowledge passed down in a more organic, maybe less structured way sometimes. The book mentions some later masters, too.
Right, as the art evolved. Figures like Shang Yunxiang, Li Wenpao, Kang Qishan, and Chang Qiaotong emerged.
Cheng Qiaotong. There's a story about him, too, right? With the blanket.
Yes. Great story. Zhang returns home when he's 60. There's this local guy, Ma, proclaiming himself the strongest boxer around. Chang doesn't want to brawl.
So what does he do?
He has 4 students hold up a blanket behind Ma. Tells Ma, protect yourself. I'll only touch your arm. Chang uses just his fingers and palm heel, a light touch.
Yeah.
And Ma goes flying backward into the blanket, pulling all 4 students down with him.
Whoa, just from a touch on the arm.
Shows incredible focus power, right? Control over force.
Yeah.
Ma was so impressed he immediately asked to become Chang's student. It's a perfect example of skill over just brute strength.
That's a fantastic demonstration. And finally, the book brings it closer to the time of writing, mentioning some Taiwanese boxers.
Yeah, Smith lists Wang Shuqian, Chang Chunfang, Qian Panling, Kuo Fengqi, who was actually Smith's own teacher in Taiwan, and Heng Yixiang, as well-known Pa Kua people there at the time.
Okay, so we've got this amazing history, these legendary figures. Now the book switches gears to the practical stuff. It starts with a beginning method from Chang Chunfeng. Why start there with something more linear before getting to the circle walking Pa Kua is famous for?
Good question. The author, Smith, explains his thinking. This method, while maybe not pure classical Chang Qiaotum style, perhaps learned from someone else in Tianjin, is presented first because it's thought to be, well, maybe more accessible for Western beginners.
Easier to grasp initially.
That seems to be the idea. Without losing the core principles, Smith himself learned it from Chan's senior students, Hong Jianmin and Heng Yixiang. He mentions there were like 64 basic postures and over 100 other movements in the full system.
Wow.
So the section is just a selection illustrating the basics. It's kind of like, learning your scales before you play a symphony, or maybe learning the alphabet before writing poetry.
Okay, a more accessible entry point. This part covers 18 exercises and 20 basic forms. Let's talk exercises first. What are the key guiding principles?
Several core ideas pop up right away. First, the palm, not the fist, is the main weapon. More versatile, potentially more power.
Okay, palm boxing. Makes sense.
Second, you need to unbalance your opponent first. Stretch them out, disrupt their route before you attack effectively. Third, the arms don't just flail around. They move as part of the whole body.
Integrated movement. Got it.
Then, circularity, big theme for speed and power. Attacking obliquely, turning the corner, especially useful against someone bigger or stronger.
Angling. Smart.
Also, when arms cross, the idea is to deflect and seize in one single motion. Very efficient. And when pushing, aiming slightly upward helps break the opponent's stability.
Upward push, okay.
And maybe most importantly, the waist leads everything. It's the engine driving all of the action. You see how some of these, like the waist power, will definitely carry over and maybe even amplify in the classical circling.
Those are clear principles. The book then details the 18 exercises. Can you give us a flavor of a couple just to see how those principles work?
Sure. Let's see. The hand sword, for instance, really drills that waist-arm connection with a chopping move. Power from the core. Direct clamping uses wide stances and big arm circles, all coordinated with the waist, showing that circularity principle.
Okay.
Deflection attack is a great example of doing two things at once. The block flows right into a push.
Yep.
Simultaneous defense and offense. Squatting attack shows how to generate power upward when we be jammed up close.
Useful.
Cross and push is called a fundamental transition posture. Pops up in lots of forms. And spear hand demonstrates crossing the opponent's arm, pulling them off balance while you strike straight in with the other hand.
So even in these beginner exercises, the core Pa Kua ideas are there, even if it's not all circles yet. The book stresses understanding the principles over just memorizing moves, right?
Absolutely critical point.
Yeah.
These exercises are meant to bake those principles into your muscle memory, basically.
Yeah.
Eventually, you can adapt, create, modify based on understanding, not just rote learning.
Right. So after the exercises come the 20 basic forms and their functions. How are forms different from exercises here?
The forms provide more structure, a system. The exercises are like maybe individual letters or words. The forms are like sentences or short paragraphs. They link movements together in a set sequence.
Ah, okay. Easier to remember as a whole pattern.
Generally, yeah, compared to just isolated attack defense bits from the exercises. And the book really hammers home practicing them on both sides, left leg, then right leg, for balance, coordination, the whole deal.
Makes sense. And each form has a function. It's practical self-defense use.
Exactly. The function shows how the form's movements counter a specific attack. Like Form 1, to open, uses arm rolls and strikes against a punch you control their arm, open them up, then hit.
Okay.
To hold up shows crossing their arm and body to unbalance them. And it notes, importantly, that the push you practice becomes a strike in a real fight.
A distinction.
To feel involves a simultaneous spear hand to a vulnerable spot while controlling their other arm, setting up more moves. To bind uses a circular block against a kick, then attacks low. To cut combines a block, an elbow lock, and a counterpunch. You can see how those core principles layer together.
Yeah, the waist leading opposing forces. It's building up into more complex sequences. The book also mentions subtleties, like things happening simultaneously and being careful with, say, eye strikes in practice.
Right. Written descriptions, even photos, only capture a snapshot. The real technique is fluid, coordinated, multiple things happening at once. And yeah, the caution about dangerous moves just highlights responsible training is key.
Definitely. Then there's this afterthoughts and examination section for the beginning method. What's the main practice advice there?
Smith really stresses active engagement. Don't just read it, study it, sweat over the movements. Practice consistently. He shares his own learning challenges to encourage sticking with it.
Okay, persistence.
He clarifies exercises are daily drills for basics and discipline, while forms link together. Learn all the forms first, then their uses. Practice forms correctly, fast, lightly. Power comes from unified body movement, from qi, not brute strength.
Chi. We'll come back to that.
Definitely. Practice both sides. He gives a system for linking the 20 forms into 5 groups of 4, alternating directions. And when practicing the uses, start with pushes, not strikes. Gradually use bags or maybe partner's shoulders, carefully.
Sensible progression.
And it ends with some thought-provoking questions, pushing for deeper understanding beyond just doing the moves. It sounds like the kind of training that really shapes you, not just your fighting ability.
Seems like a very thorough grounding. But the goal isn't just to master this beginning method, right? It's a stepping stone.
Exactly. The aim is to internalize it all principles, techniques so deeply that it becomes second nature, instinctive, moving beyond conscious step-by-step thinking.
Okay, so after laying that foundation, the book finally moves to the classical circling exercise and its modifications. This feels like the heart of Pa Kua as most people picture it. What's the big difference from the beginning method?
The fundamental shift, like you said, is circular versus linear. That beginning method, with its more direct forward-backward stuff, has similarities to Xing'ai, often described as vertical strength, straight-line attacks.
Okay.
Classical Pa Kua, though, is all about dynamic circles. It emphasizes horizontal strength intercepting laterally, curving attacks, the whole body rotating. While the first method had some circles, this classical form is built on continuous circular motion.
So linear intro, then full-on circles. Almost like comparing, I don't know, a battering ram to a whirlwind.
That's a decent analogy, yeah. The linear part gets you ready, the circular is the full expression.
And to introduce this classical side, the book uses advice from Kuo Feng-chik, Smith's teacher. What does Kuo emphasize for this internal approach?
Kua's notes are really key here for understanding the internal side of Pa Kua and Tai Chi and Xing'ai too. He starts with relaxation, fangsong, and slowness.
Relaxation and slowness seems counterintuitive for fighting.
Right. But relaxation isn't being limp. It's about quieting the nerves, releasing unnecessary tension, cultivated through things like Chan Chuang, standing meditation. It's mental, almost spiritual, willing this calm flow.
Okay, deep relaxation and slowness.
Slowness isn't just about moving slowly, though that's part of practice. It's also a state of mind.
Yeah.
No impatience. It lets you observe deeply, really feel the movements, listen to your body, connect with the principles.
Developing profound internal awareness first. What else does Kuo stress?
The mind-eye, this is huge in internal arts. Eye is linked to the heart, kin in Chinese psychology. It's the director. The sequence is mind commands, strength follows, qi, vital energy flows.
Mind leads, strength follows, chi flows. Got it.
Training the mind deliberately, slowly, is how you manifest that internal understanding externally. Breathing is also crucial, sinking the breath to the navel area, making it natural, effortless even during exertion. Kuo says this harmonizes naturally with practice.
Okay. What about strength? How does that fit in if you're focusing on relaxation in mind?
Yeah, seems like a paradox. Kuo tackles it directly. It's not whether you use strength, but how.
Hmm.
He contrasts external muscular strength with Pa Kua's internal strength, which is described as reserved, spread through the body, adaptable, alive.
Internal strength is different.
Okay. He even suggests beginners without prior boxing training might learn internal arts more easily because they don't have ingrained habits of using brute force. The three requirements he gives for learning are softness, slowness, and evenness.
Softness, slowness, evenness. Okay. The book then compares internal and external boxing based on substance and function. What's the gist of that?
According to Ku's view presented here, internal boxing focuses on cultivating spirit and body together, influenced by Taoism Buddhism. Inner development is prioritized alongside theory and practice. This inner stuff manifests physically when needed.
And external.
External is seen as more focused on the physical, the material muscle size, specific techniques, sometimes flashy power displays. Internal strength is described as hidden, permeating, inexhaustible, both hard and soft. Internal arts emphasize understanding change, yin-yang, winning through wisdom, efficiency, instinct. External focuses more on repeatable techniques.
So internal is training for fighting and for life.
That's the perspective presented, yeah.
Yeah.
Building physical and mental discipline for both.
It's a deep distinction. Ku also talks about concepts needed for training: firm will, confidence, mental prep. He mentions middle age being ideal. Why?
Kua suggests middle-aged folks often have more life experience, maybe less distraction, more focus. Younger people might chase outward strength, which fades, leading to later regret. A mature learner might be quieter, more receptive, maybe seeking inner peace over just sensory stuff.
Interesting perspective. He also brings up Wu Wei acting naturally, without forcing. How does that apply here?
Wu Wei here means becoming like a blank slate, basically.
Yeah.
Free of rigid ideas, allowing you to harmonize with the art's natural principles. Kuo clarifies some misconceptions like internal arts aren't just soft or for old people. They all aim for the same goal, just different paths, and can be hard or soft as needed.
So they're not mutually exclusive categories.
Right. And he keeps coming back to the mind, I, as the origin, the controller, finding stillness within movement, circular for Pa Kua, linear for I Ching Kai, consciously choosing hard or soft. The spirit guides the body through Wu Wei and Wango, forgetting the ego.
Forgetting the ego.
Yeah.
Okay, this idea of mind leading the movement, is that something a beginner actively tries to do, or does it develop?
It develops, but Kuo emphasizes the importance of knowing first, then acting. He lays out three basics: stillness before movement, softness before strength, slowness before speed.
Stillness, softness, slowness first.
Exactly. And says students who really try to understand conceptually before just jumping into action, learn better, grasp it deeper, can progress even without a teacher watching every second. Those who just mimic miss the core.
Makes sense. Learn the why before the how. And Kuo's final word talks about fundamentally remaking the body. That sounds intense.
It's described as exactly that, a process of undoing bad habits, tensions, clumsiness, to get back to a more natural pre-birth state, a state that's receptive to being molded correctly by the art.
Pre-birth state.
Yeah. It starts with that focus on relaxation, softness. True hardness, real power emerges from that foundation later. Slow practice is vital for feeling, for developing sensitivity. He talks about balancing pre-birth innate movement with post-birth learned strength, with qi felt as centered in the navel, ready to burst out.
Qi centered in the navel.
Then the next stage is described as the subconscious taking over. Automatic adjustments, heightened senses, spontaneous counters using soft strength with a strong body, avoiding tension until impact. Like refining steel, he says, the ultimate goal is I Chi body and universe connected, leading to right action at the right time. Calm inside, explosive power outside.
Wow, so relaxation isn't being floppy, is it? It's more about ditching useless tension so real power can flow.
Exactly that. It's purposeful relaxation, enabling power, not negating it.
That's a very deep perspective. Okay, shifting to the main principles of Pa Kua physically. The book admits it's tough, takes years. Quotes Chao Chi Chan on long periods of slow walking before speed. What are the key physical points?
Beyond the internal stuff, several physical pillars. 1, move naturally. Avoid stiffness like some external styles. 2, stretch the arm but simultaneously pull back the trapezius muscle. These kinds of opposing actions are typical.
Harmonizing energy and strength again.
Yes, reiterating Kuo's points and keeping that vital energy, qi, sunk below the navel, the energy center, gravity center for stability and power generation.
Okay. And the other principles to master, what else is crucial?
Keeping the chest slightly depressed, not puffed out, helps chi flow. Tongue lightly on the roof of the mouth, head straight like you're balancing something.
Balancing T, maybe?
Maybe. Expand the back by rounding, relaxing the shoulders down, elbows point down, even when extending or twisting, maintaining a connected strength. And mastering that 5-part hand technique, rise, drill, fall, overturn as one super fast action.
That sounds complex. And things to avoid.
3 big ones. Don't strain your breath. Breathe naturally. Don't hold it. Don't use excessive brute force. It hinders breathing, flexibility, internal health, and it's inefficient anyway. And don't arch your chest. Strength should be lower. Breathing abdominal. Focus on the lower abdomen. Arching destabilizes you.
Got it. Avoid straining, forcing, arching. Then there's this concept to feel. What does that mean in Pa Kua?
To feel here is about intense mental engagement, active muscle involvement throughout every single part of a movement. It's not just passive sensing. Because the mind is so involved, it's subjective, different for everyone. But you need the commitment, the faith, to keep developing that sensitivity.
So it's deep internal awareness during movement.
Exactly. And paradoxically, focusing intensely on me, on the self, is seen as the path to eventually forgetting the self, the I. Like yoga, aiming for unity between you and the universe through posture and attunement.
Unity. Okay. The anecdote about Kuo practicing blindfolded, stopping simultaneously with his friend through just mental connection, that illustrates it perfectly.
It really does, that level of heightened sensitivity and connection.
Okay, finally we get to the concept of the circle. This is Pa Kua, right? Walking the circle, changing directions. How different is this core practice?
It's fundamentally different from the linear beginning method, yeah. Walking the circle is the absolute bedrock practice. Traditionally, beginners would spend serious time on this daily an hour, as mentioned. Knees bent comfortably at first, getting lower over time. It's physically demanding and requires intense mental focus.
Just walking in circles sounds simple, but it's clearly not. How does the body move? The arms?
The body turns with the circle, but the waist turns opposite, creates a twisting, coiling power. Arms move with momentum, pushing from the elbows, but also having this pullback feeling from the shoulder blades, the trapezius.
Opposing forces again.
All the time. One arm might circle out to attack or block, the other circles inward, continuous flow. Arms twist and turn independently within that. Why circles? To generate speed and power.
And it feels awkward at first, the book says. Why?
Because you're undoing years of habitual, probably inefficient posture and movement. Your body needs re-educating. The low stances, bent knees, they feel tiring initially because they're strengthening you correctly, breaking old patterns.
So you have to go through the unnatural to get to the natural.
That's exactly the phrase used, from the unnatural to the natural, or from the hard to the soft. Once the body adapts, the discomfort goes, and you become faster, more efficient. Relaxation softness allows that quick response.
So it's reconditioning for relaxed power. The book gets specific about how to walk the circle. Feet, toes.
Very specific. Knees bent. Initially, maybe ankles brushing as you walk slowly. Rear foot pauses briefly by the front ankle before stepping. Contrast this with Sun Lutang's method where feet stay apart. This touching ankle method slows you down, builds stability early on.
Heel first.
Heel touches first, then the sole rolls down. Prevents being easily scooped. Toes can point straight, inward or outward. Parate position.
And the circle size?
Varies. Start maybe 6 feet across. Later, huge circles or tiny ones. You're told to imagine an enemy constantly behind you, keeping that intent.
What are the payoffs from all this circle walking?
You learn balance, fluid movement on curves without dizziness. Crucially, it circularizes the whole body, integrates everything, so defense and attack become one unified, instinctive response.
Advanced circling, too. Figure eights.
Yeah, figure eights between points, then a complex 9-station pattern. Circling each way, using different postures, always feeling that opponent. Adds variety, but the core actions stay the same. Smith notes real changes within a month of daily practice. Better stability, strength sinking lower, easier breathing, feeling chi like tingling in the arms, much more back flexibility.
Impressive results. Quiet standing is also mentioned, before and after circling.
Yeah, important for composure, focus. Simple posture, upright, head straight, relaxed, heels together-ish, toes slightly out. Empty the mind. Eventually, you might lose the sense of difference between moving and standing still. Sun Tzu Chi, infinity posture.
Kua's had a modification.
Slight tweak. Feet slightly apart. And he noted that with deep relaxation, the body might start trembling spontaneously, like a horse shaking. A natural sign of released tension.
Okay. Then beginning to move. from quiet standing. Very detailed description of posture forces.
Extremely detailed. Left leg forward, knee over heel, arms in specific arcs, waist relaxed, elbows down. Talks about feeling one arm contracted, the other expanding, gaze focused, engaging the trapezius, slight back bow, the tiger mouth hand shape, feeling resistance as palms turn.
Tiger mouth.
Thumb and index finger open, crescent shape, slight push, then the waist turning opposite the hands, thighs contracting up and in, head up, relaxed mouth, nose breathing, sinking chi, keeping level during turns. It's all about achieving total unity mind, energy, strength, body parts, inside, outside, one feeling, no wasted effort.
That intricate setup leads into the single palm change Tan Huan Cheng, called the main offensive action. First, Sun Lutang's version, key points.
Sun's method starts left hand, left foot forward. Right foot steps up, toes in, close to the left. Specific feelings in heels, thighs. Left wrist twists down as left foot steps forward again. Right palm keeps pushing. Right foot steps up again, toe in. Hands twist, palms up. Shoulders contract slightly, waist turns left, right hand passes under left elbow. Head coordinated, gaze follows right hand. Slow turn right step, right foot out, right hand twists out from under left arm, circles up, index finger vertical, palm to center, torso turn center, palms up, elbows down. Finally, palms twist down, gaze right, index finger right, tiger mouth pushes, shoulders contract. Reverse it all for the other side. Natural coordinated turn. Recommended for beginners because it's slower, deliberate.
Sounds methodical. And variations exist. What's its function?
Yeah, the main variation is more fluid, no pauses. Right hand wraps under immediately. Right foot comes up, suspended by the left ankle briefly, allows a faster swing back. Wang Shu Chin's version adds a little curve to the foot on that swing back. Function-wise, Ku said it's not one specific strike, more a rapid way to change direction reflexively.
But it has applications.
Oh yeah, example given. Block a left punch with your left hand, toe in right foot. Turn left, step left, spear their side with your right palm as your right foot comes forward, toe in or suspended. Swing back right deals with their other hand or another attacker. Wayne's foot lift defends the leg.
Okay. Then the double palm change, Shuang Huan Cheng, sounds even more complex. Sun's method first.
Sun's double change, left hand out, walk counterclockwise, right foot toes in near left half center. Left foot steps out, toes out. Akuo stressed this. Left thumb down, arm extends, waist turns left. Right foot toes in, beside left, back to center. Hands twist, palms up, right under left elbow. Left foot toes out, right foot toes in near left, body faces center. Left hand circles down left side, right hand goes overhead. Left foot lifts on right leg.
There.
Step left into near horse stance, arms outside thighs, palms down, head twisted left, gaze left. Right foot toes in again, palms twist up, right under left elbow, back to center. Slow swing, right to walk, right hand extends center, palms twist down.
Ooh, a lot of steps. Modifications.
Yes, several focusing on flow. Like the left arm wiping down past the right as right foot toes in, different footwork going backward and turning. Hong Guanyan's style is mentioned as similar, but tighter, more compressed. Function. Many uses. Book says study with the partner to figure them out.
Right, discovery through practice. Then we get specific postures. Snake, lion, standing palm, dragon, hawk. Quick rundown.
Okay. Snake, sheik, rear strike or push while turning, often from single change. Thrust palm back under armpit, turn. Lion, deflect right, shoot left palm. Arm separate, tiger mouths aligned diagonally. Standing palm, Li Cheng. Palms up near mouth level, aligned with shoulders. Can defend rear attack. Dragon, lung. Similar function, palms up in almost a straight line. Hawk, Yao. From Sun's book, backward thrust under armpit, simultaneous upward strike with other hand, often follows single change. Function is said to be obvious from the form.
Got it. Well, this has been an incredibly detailed look into Pa Kua via Smith's book. Let's try to boil down the key takeaways for everyone listening.
Sounds good. So we've definitely seen the deep roots in the I Ching, that whole philosophy of constant change. That flows right into the classical method's focus on circular movement, which contrasts with that more linear beginning method.
Right. And the internal side is huge. Cultivating the mind, relaxation, the right kind, understanding chi.
Absolutely. And we touched on those foundational exercises and the 20 basic forms, getting a sense of how they work in application.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you a solid shortcut to understanding Pa Kua's basics and its really rich history without needing that PhD in ancient Chinese thought. For me, just seeing how tightly the physical art and the philosophy are woven together was fascinating. It's not just moves.
Definitely not. And those legends about Tong Hai Chuan, they certainly add a layer of mystique, don't they?
They really do. What stood out for you?
For me, it's that paradox we talked about, needing to learn movements that feel unnatural at first. in order to eventually achieve truly natural, efficient skill. It really makes you think about how we learn movement itself, how sometimes you need to break things down to build them back up better.
Yeah, that's a great point. Look, it's clearly a lot to take in. Pa Kua has incredible depth, complexity. We've only scratched the surface here. But the aim was a clear, manageable introduction. Hopefully we hit that mark.
Hope so.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. We talked a lot about philosophy and physical practice being linked in Pa Kua. Where else do you see that kind of connection? Maybe in other things you do, other disciplines. And what about that idea of aiming for a pre-birth naturalness to achieve mastery? Could that apply outside martial arts, maybe in creativity, or just, personal growth? Definitely something to mull over as you continue exploring.